Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. As America decides who will run the White House, environmentalists are hoping that the next 4 years can turn around devastating climate change. And joining us now is Miranda Green, energy and environment reporter. Really great to have you on. Back in June, you wrote this article outlining why it's going to take more than one term or 4 years to undo the Trump administration's actions over the past 4 years. So what specifically needs to happen?
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done, right? So first, if Biden were to come into the presidency, he can tackle this kind of in three ways. It's what he can do himself with the stroke of the pen in terms of attacking any sort of presidential executive orders himself, what he can do with his agencies, so how he's going to stack his EPA, his Interior Department, and with the heads in terms of the legislation, or in terms of the policies that they want to put into place, and also how he wants to kind of attack bills and legislating in Congress. So all of those things can be done at a different timeline. First of all, if Biden were to become president, he can automatically, with the strike of a pen, roll back a lot of things very quickly that President Trump has done through executive orders. So these are things like making it easier for pipelines to get permits, getting rid of interesting regulations that President Trump has put into place, like every time a new regulation is put into play, two have to be deleted. When it comes to more firm regulations and rolling back policies, that's when it's going to get a little bit trickier. The White House under President Trump has been very good and very strategic at moving quickly and swiftly to roll back environmental regulations. Just in the past 4 years, the president has changed, wiped out, or completely wiped out 150 regulations that have to do with the environment. So if President Biden wants to come in and reverse some of those rules, some are going to take a lot longer than just repealing them. He's going to have to rewrite new rules, go through a public comment period, and try to get this back on the books. Some of those rules took 4 years for President Trump to put into place. So one would imagine would take just as long for him to do for President Biden to change back. So not only would Biden be kind of starting at a step back place from where Obama was, but if he wants to kind of move the country forward in terms of climate change and environmental policies, he's got to first build back from where President Trump was and then move forward there.
If things stand right now, so just say, assuming Joe Biden were to win the presidency and the Republican and the Senate stays in Republican control, what does that mean for a Biden presidency in terms of the environment?
Sure. That, of course, makes it a lot harder for him in terms of passing meaningful legislation, right? Biden ran on a campaign of a climate plan that would spend $1.7 trillion. And part of that climate plan would really rely on Congress in terms of how to allocate money to do the spending. Part of that plan includes investing in green energy. It includes putting a ban on future drilling on oil and gas drilling on public lands. And it includes getting rid of any sort of subsidies that are for the oil and gas industry. So parts of those things he can do himself as president. He can stop drilling on public lands as an executive within the Interior Department on the agency side. But getting rid of subsidies, getting rid of tax breaks that are passed through Congress, that's something that he needs the Senate to sign off on. Also, the House itself has been pushing its own climate bills for the last 2 years and has obviously been stopped when it comes to the Senate because of opposition from the GOP. So in order to pass any sort of meaningful climate legislation, that's something that without a Democratic-controlled Senate makes it a lot harder for both the presidency and the House to be able to pass any sort of comprehensive bill. Doesn't mean it's not possible, but means that they're going to have to be more moderate in terms of how they attack this.
If President Trump were to win re-election, what does that mean for environmental efforts?
I think we'll start seeing a lot of, we'll keep seeing a lot of the same things. The EPA and the Interior Department still have many regulations that are in the works right now, many that are not going to be finalized before Trump, leaves the White House or before Inauguration Day in January. So he would continue to push those through and continue to finalize those bills. So what we will see is 4 more years of environmental deregulation, something that Republicans are very happy about, something that Trump ran on a platform of in 2016, something he's been very successful at. So we will continue to see more deregulation. We will continue to see more benefit of the oil and gas industry, something that Trump has touted as being one of the reasons why the economy has been so strong under him, is because he's been able to keep jobs there. He's been able to make the U.S. a top exporter of natural gas, which is something he talks about at his State of the Union address. And we will see less of an emphasis on climate change as an existential crisis. President Trump has not said that it is something that he believes he's largely responsible for, often pointing to China and other big polluters and foreign countries as really being the reason for that, despite the fact that the U.S. is actually the #2 polluter globally. Even at the most recent debate, he kind of passed the buck and said that, but the U.S. has the cleanest air, which is just simply not true. The pollution regulations that have been rolled back under Trump will actually continue to increase the dirtiness of the air, and likely we will start seeing those numbers kind of add up if changes aren't made, and especially if more rollbacks are done under Trump.
Really quickly, we under President Trump, we left the Paris Climate Accord, and I believe that was effective yesterday, actually. Under a President Biden, if that's where is the way this election goes, how would that change? Do you expect that we would get back into the climate accord, and is that something that, how long would that take?
Sure. Yes, we officially exited the Paris Climate Accord yesterday. This is something that President Trump moved really swiftly to do within just a couple months of coming into the presidency. Biden can rejoin it, but it will be a process, and likely one that would include more negotiations. But what you have to keep in mind here is that while we are just exiting it now, the U.S. has not been enacting or following any of the guidelines that were put in place under this accord for the past 4 years. So that's 4 years of lost action on the part of the U.S. in terms of hitting these global emission standards. So rejoining is one thing, but getting the country to a place where it can actually hit these goals of zero emissions by 2050, that is going to be a high barrier and a high burden that the Biden administration is going to have to figure out how to do, especially with such a smaller, shortened timeline, having 4 less years than what the Obama administration thought we would have when it was first signed in 2016.
All right, Miranda Green, energy and environment reporter. Really great to have you on this morning. Appreciate it.